So we asked for your questions on social media over the last couple of days, and we're going to answer a few of those questions. But there's also a little Brucey bonus.
Big news.
If you do fire a question at us, you're going to be put into a draw to get a free lesson once a month. Okay, we're going to pick one person at random for a free lesson with one of the Zen team at Bawtry Golf Club. So that is an absolute exclusive. Don't pass up on that opportunity.
Drop your comments.
Drop your comments below. Drop the questions there, and then you'll be in the draw every month for a free lesson. It's a win-win. So basically, today we're going to answer a few questions. Stephen Fisher was asking about alignment. So he's drawing the ball, but he can't start the ball far enough right. So he wanted to talk about how he should set up to encourage that. So look, it's a face and path issue. I'm going to answer the question from my perspective, and then we're going to get an insight from Fars into how he does it as a tour player. They're going to be different, there's no doubt about that, but that's the essence of the philosophy of our coaching. There's different ways of doing it.
The difficulty there, as we'll both explain, is the fact you need to know where the ball's starting, don't you, Marcus? So I both will chat about the relationship of path and face. So I will try and discuss where the ball starts and then working out everything in from there. So Marcus is going to start us off.
Thanks. Shout out into the Largo. Beautiful coffee as well.
Thanks for the weather.
I've become a coffee connoisseur. No two players align the same, really. Okay, because the body's in a different place, body size, shape. This is essentially an extension of the body, becomes part of it. It's going to be in a different place. It's going to be in a different place, lie angle wise, face, sweet spot wise. It's going to be very different. So there's no one size fits all. Just because that leading edge is lined up does not mean that sweet spot is in the same place because of lie angle. It changes. For me personally, your alignment, as you'll have seen from some of the videos, adapts towards your intention. So very much the visual is driving the action, and what you're applying to that is your awareness with this in the hand. So as you start to look at that target and you start to move, you move in this. It's like, you know, it's like thinking about your foot if you were kicking a football. You're not thinking about the orientation of the foot. This automatically organises itself whilst you're looking where you're going with the intention of kicking it there. The awareness of the body map takes over, and for me it's heightening your awareness of this as part of your body map. So really it's attunement to the club face, which gives you then the opportunity to explore face and path better, and therefore set up in a more organised way before you start. So it's a reverse engineering process. We learn from our results. You've got a ball that's starting too straight, Stephen. We know at impact the face is too straight, okay, because the ball's going to be starting on that line and then it's drawing. So we know your path. We know the path is right of that face. So you've got a functional, well, it's not a functional draw, it's a draw, but it's not functional because it's not starting right. And that's club face. But if you just aim your club face to the right, but the swing shape stays the same, essentially you're just doing this. And then you might start just blocking, because what you've done is you've opened your face, but you've not changed the path. So the orientation of the swing's not changed, but you've changed this in relation to the swing. So we need to change everything. Whenever you change one thing, you're actually adapting everything. So for me, this is more about attuning yourself to your ball flight than it is setting up. Once you get to a certain level, like Foz, he knows his ball flight inside out. It's so neutral as well. The most minuscule of changes to Foz, he's so sensitive to that, I guess. We're going to discuss this though, that he will feel that straight away. He knows where he is.
One thing you will see, and it's on tonight's video, we had a really good lesson yesterday. You guys will see it out tonight, and that is a player who is the big man himself, who's behind the camera, Craig, who subconsciously changed his aiming without thinking about it. You know, during that video, it's the exact same thing. Once you're confident in your path, he subconsciously started aiming to the right because he knew he could hit the draw after what Marcus has told him. You'll see all that later, but that's just something thought that exactly just bringing the subconscious thing into it.
That's an awesome point, and that happens loads of times in the video, and loads of times when people have lessons, they find that the stance has changed. Like with Tony Bennett, when we did the lesson with Tony,
exactly.
His stance was widening.
Without asking him to do it.
Exactly. So these changes, they emerge naturally, and that's movement. Movement is an emergent behaviour. It just suddenly.
And it's yourself finding your own way.
Exactly.
As well,
The key to this is you being aware of what's taking place, recognising what's happening consciously, so that you can revisit that place. But these changes are happening subconsciously, and often we miss them, and we hit these great shots, and we're setting up in a way that is optimal for us, and we miss it because our mind's somewhere else. In an effort to try and set up perfectly, what you could actually be doing is denying yourself the opportunity to actually explore your best setup. So what I would do, Stephen, is actually do probably the opposite of what you would expect. Instead of getting sticks out or thinking about where this is pointing, actually start hitting the ball right. Literally. Set it up to the right. Start it right. So you can use an alignment stick. That's just a bit of a reference. Obviously, I use hoops on the channel and things like that, which is great. But when you're on your own, unless you've got a sidekick standing out there with a hoop, get your alignment stick out. You could always use two if you like. These as a reference. We've got some external focus here. We can start the ball through the middle. Now what I'd suggest you do, I mean for a player like Foz and for the lower handicappers, you can bring it in and you can see if you can get that ball to start through there, and then in your mind finish between those two sticks down there. Okay, and then you can you could play, you're literally playing like a 1 yard fade, a 1 yard draw, or you can start to hit it outside and get it to finish in between them, or start it outside and get it to finish over here. These are quite narrow, to be fair. I would start with them wider, particularly for me. So what we've got now, we've got this gate. So what I would suggest, Stephen, is how do you hit the ball right of those sticks? First of all, like Foster's, so you might want to aim that way. Okay, and then just play a shot. Doesn't matter about shape, like Foz said, start line. Okay, whatever shape you get, just go with that, but can you start the ball right? Now, can you start the ball right with your body aiming in this direction? So my feet are aiming over here, but can I start the ball right?
For someone who's struggling aiming down the left side, so you're already trying to extend boundaries and work harder.
Yeah, so you're challenging the system. Okay, and then do the opposite. A bit dangerous here. We've got Villas on the left, but I'll do a little shot. I'll play a fade, which I'm not that renowned for. But can I start it left and fade it? So I'm going to have to look at the body now, look at the orientation of the setup. I'm over here with the intention of starting it there. When I wanted to start it right, I was over here. So the body's adjusting to the intention, and the intention is visual. Okay, because we're looking where we're going, so it's kind of, you're starting to match how you're aligning the whole system to where you want to go. This is just part of the system. Okay, don't get too transfixed on this club face because this is going to move and change. There's some players that will start with a closed face, some players that will start with some players will play phase and start with a closed face, some players will play draws with a very open face. That you need to find this yourself. This will also be variable from shot to shot to shot. So then can you start it straight down there? So you're starting to get a feel of a start line that way, start line that way, and a start line that way before shape.
A lot of people as well, I mean, we're into winter, I mean, it's great practice for everyone, you know, probably going to driving ranges or whatever. It just, even, I mean, I know we don't like it, but if you've got a net at home or whatever in the winter,
if it's your only
option, you could still extend that work by just bringing your mat further back and putting an alignment stick there, so you're still practicing some kind of start line rather than just whacking it into a net. Then, you know, you're making the best of what you have over the winter. Everybody loves to fly out here, but it's, you know, it's unfortunately we can't do it all the time.
I've got to go back.
So we'll be back next week, you know, doing this stuff. But it's good practice stuff at home, definitely.
Yeah, and what I like about that is you're practicing with what you've got. So if you're practicing what is actually physical and visible, if you can't see the ball flight, don't work with ball flight. But if you can see the start line, and you've got some reference for start line, use your start line.
Yeah, you've done, you know, if you've done an hour's work on your start line, I mean, it'll improve percentage-wise massively.
So start line, you could literally have a net. Put your alignment sticks there. You've got a net. We've got where you're striking the net as reference.
Where it goes, yeah.
You're going to see the start line, so you've actually now got some physical reference to help you attune that variability of movement that you're using, that you're applying. This is part of that variability. What's it like to have the open face? How difficult would it be to start a ball right with a face that's pointing through here? So can you start with a face that's straight, start the ball right? I'm just playing little shots. You can slow the tempo right down, you can slow the swing down, but what would make that easier now? What would make me starting that ball right? Because I'm having to make massive adjustments in my golf swing, basically, to align that face in the direction I want. Whereas I could just start there. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, because there's going to be movement in the swing. It's fine tuning all the time. But now, if I start with that face a bit more open, it's going to make it easier to start right. Where would my body need to be to make the swing as easy as possible to swing it in that direction? So I'll be over here.
I think you've absolutely nailed it there. And just to finish off, vice versa, anybody who, I know what that question was, anybody the other way, try and fade the ball with a closed face. You know, if anybody's starting the ball, or you know, and they're struggling to shape it that way, the ultimate test that way is a closed face, and then trying to hit it left or right.
It's the ultimate test for me.
Well, that's
so
why I've sadistically
it's a closed
put
face.
this in.
So I've got the face pointing this way. It's death if I go left. I'm in someone's swimming pool. But so I've got to work my path to the left.
Your brain's got to work out a way of doing that.
If I stood square, I can't physically swing in the direction I need to get that path. So I'm working out where I need to be spatially in relation to the ball for the shot I want. Club face is left. I need to be further left to facilitate that swing path to the left. Now I've got a chance of swinging it left. It's a chance, okay? I've got my best chance.
Lovely.
Oh,
Lovely.
Beautiful.
Lo and behold, it's a fade. And that's with a closed face, like Foz said, closed. So I had to move my path to the left. That's making me work. That's challenging the system. And what I'm doing, providing I'm aware of what's taking place, where I am spatially, I can revisit that place. That becomes habit. So suddenly now your alignment starts to become something habitual that just organises. Through self-organisation, you've developed a habit. You know where to go because your body has been essentially doing it for you.
I think that'll be something brilliant for everyone just to do through the winter.
So thanks, Stephen, for your question. You're now entered into the draw, you lucky man. So we're on to the next question. Jeff Cloak asking about vertical ground reaction force. So we did a practice video at Pineros Altos with Foz. Foz was talking about timing of his vertical force. He'd find his face and path, and then he'd start to introduce the bigger forces. So Jeff, your question was when to apply those forces, and I think Foz is the perfect man to explain that, because essentially it was part of his practice warm-up.
So we did touch on this the other day, and again, as Marcus described there, you've still got to find what works for you. You know, we use this phrase a lot, but it's not the same for everyone. We have to keep reiterating that for the simple reason it's totally true. When to apply it, we're going to use the GRF to explain this. And for me, the best way is using the tennis ball either on the ground or on the GRF, because I get the feeling once I've got it, when I've got the ball. Two things: it tells me when the pressure goes onto the ball and when it comes off. So that's where I get my feeling from of when it does. It's pretty tricky for me. It feels like it's obviously on the way down, but it feels quite late for me. That's because I have a steep swing. Anybody seen? We chatted about this last night actually. I have a steep swing because I've had a history of a bad back, so I've adapted myself around that bad back by creating force through a steep swing and then getting force afterwards. So that's why anybody who's noticed I get very high there, so I have to kind of feel a movement down and then I come off. So that's why I feel like I come off late.
Yeah.
But the ball is the perfect thing for whoever it is to find your own position where it comes off. Would you say that, Soren?
Yeah. So you're finding where on that footprint is the best place for you to push.
Ball of the foot for me, but again,
it's generally ball of the foot, okay? But it's between, generally, it's first to fourth met head. We don't want to be on the outside of the foot pushing, it's not, but you can push from here, but you'll find your best place, and you're using the ball and toe, and you're going to be pushing to get extension, but it's when you push to get extension. Like Foz said, he's got a naturally steep swing, so he needs time to shallow it, to get that delivery right. He needs time to adapt that, and then he applies the vertical. So it's interesting what he said in his when we did the practice session video, that he finds his face and path first at probably a lower level of force and speed, and then starts to ramp it up and brings in the tennis ball just to heighten that sensation and start to give you something to push off. So it's just that stimulus, it's a feeling, it's a trigger.
I definitely build my own spirit. That's the way it works for me. I find if I try just immediately to get straight off, start dropping the club under. So I definitely, that's the way that works for me.
I also recommend the force pedal as well. That's a fantastic piece of equipment. We're just using a tennis ball at the moment, but the force pedals are a fantastic piece of kit. They give you ultimate feedback. I'm just going to use this on a GRF and just show you the loading. So when Foz is loading into the ground, he's flexing. So if I put this under the ball of the foot on the left, lead foot, what Foz is essentially doing when he swings is loading. So he's loading in flexion into the ground. So can you see I'm squeezing that ball, but I'm doing it by flexing. I'm not extending my leg to push off to tip the board. I'm tipping the board by flexing. So my centre of mass is dropping, and this is what Foz is doing. And this takes time. This gives him that extra, he often talks about the extra second in the swing. That gives him the chance to get into this delivery place where suddenly, boom, it's easy and he nails it. So he's finding that place. We can do that. We don't need a GRF. If you've got one, fantastic. That's the ultimate. But just use a tennis ball, but get a sense of flexing into that ball. And this is putting you into a place now. It's creating the conditions. It's priming the system, ready to go vertical. And then you want to let that ball reform as quick as possible. You want to get off that ball quick. Okay, you don't want to be staying on it and pushing into the ground off it. You want to be, you'll have already pushed and get the body weight up. You'll often see the player's feet spin, okay, after it. That's a reaction. So it's loading and then unloading. You want to get off that quick. Okay, and that's the load and unload. So the timing of that is something you'll find. It changes from club to club. So Foz, if you just demonstrate that again for us.
I think just as you say, it changes from club to club. It's like golf in general. It gets harder to put pressure on the longer the shaft gets. I mean, it is. So just find your own positions.
If you love the coaching, but you're not able to get a lesson and want to experience the transformation for yourself, the closest thing you can do to get a lesson is buy a Zen GRF Infinity training system and experience the same things that you're seeing my pupils go through in a lesson. It's a training tool that allows you to discover your swing naturally, and a 2-hour download all the exercises that enable my pupils to tap into those forces and find their most natural, efficient golf swing.
Quick question as well, would you hit balls doing this?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Off a T-peg.
Off a T-peg.
But like 3/4, easy tempo.
Yeah.
You can do it without. So you can do it without, but I would suggest just without first. But we're going to get off. We want to load into that board, and then while the board,
you're starting loaded.
Yeah. So you'll be pushing off to go. We won't hit it, but we'll just go back just to show him.
Pushing off.
And then he's going to be literally be dropping into flexion to tip the board to the left. Now your board stays here, and Foz goes up off the ball. There we go.
And off the ball.
Yes.
So this is helping with timing, everything. Nice 3/4 shot. You see, just there's no pressure on that ball.
Ball's reformed.
Just there, fully reformed. And that's the, like as Marcus says, keep saying finding your own way, but for me I call it the extra second, and the extra second for me, as Marcus says, it's however you want to call it, but it's for me it's grounding, then you get into the ball, and then it's
grounding. I love that. It's grounding. You're grounding. So how do you ground? Well, we're not talking about walking barefoot grounding. That's another thing, energy-wise. But grounding in this sense is loading. How do you load? We're flexing. We're going down to the ground, ready to go up. So
the board will give you answers. I mean, if you're there, if you try and go vertical from there, you can't put any pressure on this thing. The ball's going to, well, you're going to flip it or it's going to fling off right. This the board will, you know, if you obviously watch the videos, or even if you haven't got the board, the ball will tell you this. Tell you if you try and if you get up too early, you cannot put any pressure on that ball whatsoever. So from a playing point of view, which is the stuff I'm doing, you're almost getting a full turn back into the ball, which is grounding off the ball.
Yeah, perfect. Can't say it any more simpler than that, really. These are good tips and drills for the winter in your net with the alignment sticks to give you some external focus
Even
with your
in
start
this,
line.
if you've got this indoors with it, you know, this stuff you're practicing you know, practicing from the ground up here indoors. Shoes off, any of this stuff, you're going to get really good feedback.
Throw in maybe some socks.
Yeah.
Anything.
The thing is, you're familiarising yourself with these functional patterns and you're developing them and essentially hardwiring these patterns, which are also adaptable, but the patterns that you recognise and go to. So when you put the club in your hand, it's habit forming, to be honest.
We've got a long winter ahead, so you know, get doing some stuff, but make it, you know, functional stuff and you know, stuff that's going to work.
Yeah, exactly. Make it representative of what you intend to do when you come out of the winter. It needs to be applicable. So, guys, Jeff, thank you very much for that question. You lucky man, you're back in the draw as well with Stephen. Hope that's cleared things up a little bit. Thanks, Foz, that was awesome. It's so important and interesting to get a player's perspective on this who's actually doing this for real in the real world for a living.
Next question is from Richard Jones and it's wrist cock.
So Richard Jones asked about using the GRF for creating wrist cock. So thanks for your question, Richard. You're going to be entered into the draw as well, so good luck with that one. So wrist cock, how do we load? You hear a lot of things in coaching about loading the wrists, okay? Essentially, the musculature of the body, the fascial system, it's a tensioning system. This tensioning organises itself to form movement, okay? You're not physically tensioning and relaxing muscles to move. It's kind of it's a fluid system. It's a distribution of tension. But what starts to increase that tensioning is when you start to apply bigger forces. So if we want to apply a bigger force, when do we do it and how do we do it? And how do we recognise how that affects the system? In this case, the wrist. So how do we apply force through the system to essentially tension this, ready to recoil? It's essentially momentum. I'm going to give you different options. You're going to be able to do it with the GRF, you're going to be able to do it with tennis ball, or you're going to be able to do it without. Essentially, the exercises, the equipment does heighten that awareness, but you can do it without. If you're a right-handed golfer, it's right hand. So it's trail hand. It's a trail hand drill. What we're going to do is we're going to start on the left side, and then we're going to rock the board to swing the club back. So it's not initiated from the arm, it's initiated from the board. So you can always start from here with the club just to really get a sense of that lag, if you like. Okay, there's a latency through the system between this and this moving. And this is what we need to really explore and become comfortable with. Okay, we often use this too early on the way back and too early on the way down, whereas this is lagging behind the system both ways, it's not leading. Okay, so we get a feeling of throwing this back, and we're going to use the tapping back of the board to load the wrist, and that loads this because you've got this inertia here. There's momentum in this direction, there's inertia on the system, the body's got to overcome that inertia. And how does it do it? It tensions the system, and this lever starts to tension, but it's tensioning under this. You can use the tennis ball. So like we were talking with Foz earlier about the vertical ground reaction force, you're load into the system, so you load into the ground, and that loading into the ground loads the other end of the chain. You load this into the ground, this reacts. I'm loaded and loaded, okay? The system's primed, ready to unload and start to release. So now you can go vertical and start to release, okay? So you can do that with two hands on the club then, and just leave the club behind. As soon as you feel that tension of the wrist, hold it, so you start to get a sense of spatial and temporal awareness for where that is. Where is that place? Because this is essentially your backswing length. Okay, your backswing is predominantly influenced by the shifting of the pressure and the timing of it, which is momentum, because you're shifting centre of mass. So this is reacting.
Good point there. I'll just cut in on some of his thought.
Yeah.
When you said backswing length, you can, I'll use an example, John Ram, you can have a short backswing but be loaded.
Yeah.
Don't think you've got to be, now, and this, you know, the momentum will show you if you're loaded. Doesn't always mean, you know, John Ram's obviously always on, you know, he's got full power.
You wouldn't say he's got two swings too short, would you?
No, you wouldn't. So don't, sometimes don't get too caught up in the length. Just let momentum get you loaded wherever, and again, find where that point is.
Exactly. It's about finding your swing, not trying to copy a swing. So there's no preset movements in golf. There's no kind of desired perfect positions. Okay, otherwise we wouldn't have Dustin Johnson, we wouldn't have John Rahm, we wouldn't have Jim Furyk, we wouldn't have all these guys. Brooks Koepka. I mean, you could go on and on and on and on and on. They're all breaking the rule book, aren't they? Okay, so we all break the rule book. The moment we try and adhere to a rule book is the moment we start to lose our identity, and that's essentially preventing us from exploring our potential and finding our true swing. These are fundamentals you cannot get around. It's Newtonian physics, okay? This is what is driving the biomechanics, okay, on an intrinsic level. So we have a natural attunement to these. We don't have to think about all the equations that are taking place. We just have to let the body perform, but we've got to recognise how it's doing it. So this is just giving us an awareness of when we're loading. It all depends on the length of your arms, lever lengths, I mean, the way that we're built muscularly. I mean, we're all built different. We're all going to tap into this power source a different way. So this is going to allow you to find that. Now, if you haven't got a board, just use a tennis ball. So you load into it, off it, and back in. Okay, and you're finding where that place is. You can make a bigger turn. How much turn can you make? How much can you unload off that ball and make a big turn and then load? Does that feel comfortable? Where do you feel comfortable? Then you can take that away and then just explore that. And then just continue into a full finish. So you can start to get a sense of the movement as a whole. So I'll hit a couple of shots. I put my glove on. A bit warm out here, just guessing not like back at home. But now now I can grip it. It's actually helping me grip, and it's helping me tension as well. If you get sweaty palms and things like this, and you've got a loose grip, you might have to grip harder, and that's an artificial tensioning. Okay, we want to be tensioning through the whole system.
You chatted pushing boundaries. You chatted about earlier. The other option, even with the ball there, don't be scared to preset it forward. Get your feeling, you know, to get it loaded on the way back. Don't be scared. You'll find the ball anyway.
Starting from here, unloading, loading, unloading again.
It's a great speed drill, everything good, and you got your momentum. The ball's still there. You get your momentum, fully loaded, in and out. Great.
This
drill.
is speed training with focus in the right place to achieve that speed. So instead of trying to get speed from the end of the chain, you're getting speed from the ground. So you're starting to attune yourself into how you use the ground, and the chain reacts, and you're aware of how it's reacting, and that's how you get speed. That's the ultimate in speed training too. So yeah, that's a great point, Paz. Awesome. Great question.
Great question.
Awesome question. Thank you very much.
They're all great questions.
And you're in the ballot box. So good luck with that. So Foz, thanks mate. That was awesome.
Anytime.
Our resident Zen Tour professional and resident legend Craig behind the camera. Say hello, Craig.
Hello.
So guys, thank you very much. I know we've not managed to answer all your questions. We've been inundated, but this is going to be a regular series. We're going to try and work our way through as many as possible to help you, and also provide that freebie lesson once a month, bit of a Brucey bonus. So get your questions in the comments below, and good luck.